saw, I came, I saw, I praise the Lord, and break the Lord. I take what's mine, and take some more. It rains, it pours, it rains, it pours. Hello, my name is Joshua, I'm watching the video on the Deep Ridge channel. Today, it is April, so we're going to go back and look at films that I watched in March. So the first thing I watched this month was the 3-part documentary on Kanye West. That was Genius. This is a really well-made documentary. I like how it documents Kanye's life from when he was a producer to recently, but it was told through the eyes of someone who was friends with him and the person who filmed him, which was Kudi. I like how it doesn't just focus on Kanye, it does focus on Kudi and his backstory. The first and second episodes were really good, documenting the making of the college dropouts. It's just so interesting to see all of that. I didn't like episode 3 as much. It was still a really good final episode, but the first 2 episodes were just amazing. So overall, I rate this documentary a 8.5. And then I watched Scream 2022. Back in January I watched 1, 2 and 4. I didn't watch 3. But I think this might be my second favourite Scream film. The original obviously being the first. This was just really good, really entertaining, really suspenseful. I just really loved it. I really like the characters introduced in this film as well. I really like the main character's relation with Billy Loomis and how that ties in with the plot and that. I also really like the opening scene, really built suspense. I also like how the legacy characters weren't the main characters for once and actually focused more on the teenagers. I think that's refreshing for the franchise. Dewey, I was really upset when they killed him off. Dewey was one of my favourite characters. I really appreciate the guts that this film had to do that, to kill off a beloved character. I think this film is the most meta in the franchise. There's a lot of references to modern horror films and new horror films and that. The final act was really amazing as well, maybe up there with the first. And I think the killer reveal was done really well as well. It didn't feel boring or uninteresting like Scream 2 did. I just didn't really care for the reveal in that film. This film is probably the most brutal out of all the Scream films as well. Very gruesome, very graphic. I really like a bit of gore. I'd probably rate it 9.5. It's very rewatchable. It's very entertaining. I thought it was well paced. I really enjoyed the acting. And then I watched The Boys Diabolical. I like how each episode is a different style of animation. I think that's really interesting. They just tell their own little stories. Some which are really good and some which not the best. Yeah, speaking of that, the Aquafina episode was terrible. It was really cringe. It made me feel all the bad emotions. I think the final episode was probably my favourite though, the Homelander origin story, because it gave some really good context to the boys show. Saying that, I do think the episode was a bit short. All of the episodes are 15 minutes long. I feel like some episodes need to be longer. Some episodes are really amazing, like the Homelander one. Some episodes are really bad, like the Aquafina one. And some are just in between. I just don't really care about them, like that divorce one. Overall, it's a pretty solid show, like the animation styles. Some episodes are really phenomenal. Some not so much. I'd give it a 7. And then I watched The Batman, the big film of March probably. This was a really amazing film. I didn't like it as much as people on Twitter liked it and that. I might enjoy The Dark Knight better, mainly because of Heath Ledger's performance as the Joker. But this was a really solid film as well. It is up there. First of all, the cinematography is absolutely phenomenal. It's up there with Skyfall, with my favourite cinematography. The score is really amazing as well. It's one of the most unique and memorable scores I've heard in the last 10 years probably. I do like the elements of horror in this film as well, like the suspense elements to it. It just creates a really great atmosphere to Gotham. It is very long though, it is 3 hours. I do think it's slowed down in the middle bit of the film as well, but it does really pick up in the 3rd act. I think this is just a really well made film. So yeah, I'll give it a 9.5. And then I watched Eternal Sunshine of the Spotless Mind. I watched this before a few years ago now, I can't remember, 2019, 2018. And I remember thinking that the film was a bit weird. I don't think I enjoyed it that much. And after watching it again, it's just... It might just be my favourite movie of all time. It turned up on Netflix, so I thought I'd give it a rewatch. And I just absolutely love this film. All of the characters in this film are just amazingly written and really well acted. The visuals in this film are really unique and trippy as well. Interesting and convey the thoughts inside of Joel's head as his memory is being erased. Just the things around him like disappearing. The film is just really uncomfortable to watch as well, as like Joel slowly forgets Clementine as he goes further and further back with his relationship. Oh, there it is, look. It's just really emotional. Having those final 10 minutes with everyone realising what's happened to them, it's just really amazing. Just phenomenal ending. It's one of those like few movies that actually like left a proper impact on me as well. I felt the emotion hours after I watched it. It's just unforgettable. 11 out of 10. And then I watched Turning Red on Disney+. First of all, I like how this film was set in like the early 2000s with like boy band stuff and that. It's just really funny. The concept is just really fun as well. It's really well animated as well, but it is Pixar, so I'm not expecting anything less. I like how mature it can get with its themes as well. I don't think Pixar has got this like mature with its themes of growing up and coming of age and all that. The third act was really fun as well at the concerts, and I think it came to a really good conclusion as well. It's just a very cute coming of age story. It's a little bit predictable, but I don't really want to be blown away with this kind of film. I'd give it a 7.5. And then I watched The Adam Project. There's some really good acting from both Ryan Reynolds and Walker Scobell, who plays the younger Ryan Reynolds in this film. Just some really good acting from the both of them. I like their chemistry together. I just find it really funny. Why the chemistry together just leads to some really funny scenes. Saying that though, Walker Scobell kind of gets on my nerves at some points though. Some moments he's just like trying too hard to be like a young Ryan Reynolds. I do think the action scenes are pretty good with all the futuristic tech and that. The soundtrack is pretty good as well, playing like some old 70s tunes in that. But sometimes it just doesn't fit the film at all, I don't think. And I feel like it's trying to copy Guardians of the Galaxy a lot at some points. It just feels really generic in terms of like cinematography and just the plot overall. I didn't care for it. I just really didn't. Like, after the first act where the villain is introduced, I just completely lost interest. I just didn't care at all. Adam's wife, I don't care for as well. I did regain my interest a bit when Mark Ruffalo came into it though, because I like Mark Ruffalo, but saying that he was underused, I would like to see much more of him. I did not care at all for the villain. When she died, I didn't care. It's just a really generic film to me. The more I think about it, the more I don't like it. Fine. And then I finished watching Avatar The Last Airbender Book 1. This is basically season 1. I thought it was a really solid season. Really great animation as well. I think it improves a lot more in Book 2, which I'll get to a bit later. I really like the trio of Aang, Katara and Sokka. They just really play off each other really well, and their chemistry together is really good. And I just like seeing the adventures they get on. I just wasn't engaged in it that much, to be honest. I just wasn't on the edge of my seat waiting to see what happens in the next episode, because it is a bit childish at some points, and sometimes I just don't care for what's happening in the episode. But overall, really solid season of television. I would give it an 8. And then I watched A 40-Year-Old Virgin. This is a really good comedy film. I like the plot of this like 40-year-old guy who gets peer pressured into having sex. It's just a really funny concept, and I think it's executed really well. I like the second half of the film as well, where Steve Carell actually gets into a relationship with a woman and he has to hide from her that he's never had sex before. It is really long for a comedy film as well. It's like over 2 hours, but it did keep my interest. It didn't overstay its welcome. Some really well-known actors in this film as well, and it was like the first like breakout role. I'd give it an 8.5. And then I watched District 9. I really love this film. The visual effects look really great for 2009. I like how it has this mockumentary style for a lot of the film as well, and it switches between that and like the actual film, and it just gives you like a third person perspective on everything. The alien aspect of it is done really well as well, and you really end up sympathising for the creatures at the end. I really like the main character as well, who gets like promoted into this company who controls the aliens and that, and then he ends up getting turned into one himself. I love how everyone just like completely turns against him after that as well. I like how it leads into the body horror aspect as well, with like teeth falling out and fingernails coming off and everything. It's not up to levels of The Fly with body horror, but it is still uncomfortable to watch. I really hate that soldier in this film. They really ripped that soldier character to be really hateable, and I wanted him to die, and then when he finally died at the end, I was so Why does that? And I think it comes to like a really bittersweet ending as well. It really ends stuff on like an open book as well. I've heard they're actually making a District 10, so I'm definitely going to see that one in cinemas. I rate it 9.5. And then I watched Man on the Moon. I saw this on BBC iPlayer. I was looking at films on BBC iPlayer because sometimes there might be some films on like BBC iPlayer that are not on Netflix or something. And Man on the Moon was that. Jim Carrey did a really great performance in this film. I actually watched the Jim and Andy documentary before I watched this film. I watched it like a few years ago now, so I know what happened behind the scenes in that. But it did really pay off, to be honest. It's just a really great biopic on Andy Kaufman's life. I'm not familiar with Andy Kaufman at all, to be honest, but I am really interested in his life after seeing this film. And it was just really interesting seeing like his rise to fame. It's just really well paced. It's got Danny DeVito in it. So yeah, this is a really great biopic. I would watch it again as well. It's very rewatchable. So yeah, I give it a 9.5. And then I watched 300. I was basically forced to watch this film because the Wi-Fi was down. I couldn't watch Netflix, couldn't watch Amazon, I couldn't watch anything. So I had to watch some of my Blu-rays. So I decided to watch 300. This film has really unique and amazing visuals. I think this is some of Zack Snyder's like best visuals. Like some shots in this film look like paintings. They're just beautiful to look at. The action scenes in this film are really well choreographed as well, and they look really well done. But past the fight, I didn't really care for anything that was going on though. All of the stuff with like Michael Fassbender and Jared Butler and all of them interacting, it just made for a really good battle. It doesn't have a very satisfactory ending, but yeah, overall relatively entertaining. Really great visuals. I'd give it a 6.5. And then I watched Ted. This is just a really fun film by Family Guy creator Seth MacFarlane. His humour really comes through in this film. I really like the plot of this teddy bear who gets like wished to life and he basically becomes a celebrity, and then it's like 30 years later and then everyone's forgotten about him and everyone doesn't care at all that it's a walking, talking teddy bear. I like how the attention is not all on Ted and it's more focused on Mark Wahlberg's character and his relationship with his girlfriend and that. It's just really great plot with like this relationship falling apart because of a walking, talking teddy bear. The villain in this is really funny as well. And I love the Flash Gordon references in this film, being a Queen fan. The conclusion is really great as well. It is a bit of a coincidence, but it's a comedy movie. I can forget about that stuff. This was just a really great film. I love the humour. I love characters. I'd rate it a 7.5. And then finally this month I watched Jackass Forever. I watched the first 3 Jackass films back in February, and this film was probably my favourite out of all of them. I was just laughing the hardest probably out of all the Jackass films, at all the stunts, at all the pranks. I really like how they've brought in celebrities as well, like Tyler the Creator and Eric Andre. The opening for this film was really great as well. I think it might be the best out of all of them. It's just a fun time, but I think this is the most fun out of all of them. So I'd give it a 9.5. So that was it for all of the films and TV shows that I watched in the month of March. I'm currently watching Avatar: The Last Airbender Book 2. I'm really enjoying this much more than Book 1 so far. I feel like it's much more mature. I'm much more invested in it. I'm also watching Moon Knight. I'm on episode 1 so far. It's really great so far, and I possibly think that it could be the best MCU show. So I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please leave a like. If you didn't, please leave a dislike. And I'll see you in the next video. I'm not mentally disabled.